Hey guys, Moms Against Medical Bullying. So I'm recording on Zoom. Okay. So one subscriber, Shotgun Susie, shared with me Dr. Judy Woods, and it was what made me look her up? I don't know. I just decided to look her up, Dr. Judy Woods, and watch her video presentation about 9/11 and directed well, anyways, first off, she doesn't start off saying anything. She does her whole presentation and just shows evidence of what's going on when she calls it the demise of the towers. So yeah, I was watching that. I started watching it yesterday, and I had the weirdest dream this morning, and I don't know if it was because of listening to her lecture yesterday. Probably was, but I had this weirder dream this morning. But I finished watching the rest of it today, and man, it's crazy because directed energy weapons and electromagnetic waves was never something that I wanted to get into. It was kind of like flat Earth, the topics that you really don't, it's like, do I really need to open that door? Do I really need to look at that? Do I really need to look at that, God? I would rather stay ignorant of it, for some reason. I just felt like looking into those topics would just be too much, But the fact of the matter is, somebody would say, well, why is she putting up a video of her channel is called Moms Against Medical Bullying? What does that have to do with electromagnetry and directed energy weapons? And well, because they're all connected. They're all connected. They're all connected. If in fact there is no proven viruses making people sick, and and it could have something to do with radiation and so on and so forth, all these things are connected. The CDC could be is a cover agency, trying to say they care about people's health, but yet we know they're killing people with vaccines as well. But oh my God, it's like all of it is built on mountains of deception. Nobody wants to believe that because then it's like people won't want to be bothered with trying to figure out the truth, and I totally get it. So, yeah, I'm gonna share the screen. Okay, so this is Dr. Judy Woods' website. Why does it look like that? This is a little slide she has on her site about the Twin World Trade Center buildings, Twin Towers. She calls it dustification. But anyhow, you can watch her lecture if you click on presentations. That'll take you to over here. This is a presentation that I watched, but I'm sure she has many. Then that made me look up also what I wanted to say is the medical cartel with their medical cult connected with the geoengineering stuff and connected with this directed energy, all these people. And honestly, if anyone more mature in these topics than me is listening, they know that I'm just suckling milk right now. I'm just a baby at looking at any of this stuff, and people have been knowing about this for a long time. But So look, Wikipedia, right? Let's look at what Wikipedia says. Just curious. So directed energy weapon. This article is about real uses of directed energy weapons. Says here in the first line, a directed energy weapon is a ranged weapon that damages its target with highly focused energy using laser, microwaves, and particle beams. Potential applications of this technology include weapons that target personnel, missiles, vehicles, and optical devices. In the United States, the Pentagon, DARPA, the Air Force Research Laboratory, United States Army Armament Research Development Engineering Center, Naval Research Laboratory. They got the land, the air, and the water, are researching directed energy weapons and railguns to counter ballistic missiles, hypersonic cruise missiles, and hypersonic glide vehicles. What is this? This is crazy because in my dream last night, it was like we were not where I live, we were somewhere else. And all of a sudden there was all these planes flying above us. It was crazy. And we heard like boom, we were hearing booms. And what we were doing in my dream was trying to find a basement to find shelter in or something. So I don't know. Hypersonic glide vehicles. Yeah, and all this is also connected with NASA and spinning Earth. Like it is a whole system. We live in a system. And all these people are connected to try to give us the life that they want us to have. These systems of missile defense are expected to come online no sooner than the mid to late 2020s. That's this year. Russia, China, India, and the UK are also developing directed energy weapons, while Iran and Turkey claim to have directed energy weapons in active service. And the first usage of directed energy weapons in combat was claimed to have occurred in Libya in 2019. Okay. Sonic weapons. This is interesting. Tests performed on mice show the threshold for both lung and liver damage occurs about 184 dB. I'm guessing that's decibels? Yeah. Damage increases rapidly as intensity is increased. Noise-induced neurological disturbances in humans exposed to continuous low-frequency tones for durations of longer than 15 minutes involve development of immediate and long-term problems affecting brain tissue. The symptoms resembled those of individuals who had suffered minor head injuries. Interesting. One theory for a causal mechanism is that prolonged sound exposure resulted in enough mechanical strain to brain tissue to induce encephalopathy. Now, this is what I believe my mother-in-law had when she started hallucinating after she hit her head. She fell, hit her head, busted the skin on the back of her head. She had to go to the emergency room because they use staples to put that skin back together. I'm not sure if they gave her a vaccine before she went in for the CAT scan or after, but a part of me was thinking if she went in for the CAT scan, which is right high energy electromagnetic waves, you know, I wonder what the components of the vaccine and the electromagnetic waves, how those interact with each other. I don't know. Just curious. I mean, because we know that vaccines cause brain swelling, I assumed that the Tdap vaccine damaged her. That's my assumption. So, but I was wondering how it all mixes in with everything going on there at the hospital with the CAT scan waves and everything. So let's see here. The long-range acoustic device is an acoustic hailing device developed by LRAD Corporation to send messages and warning tones over long distances at higher volumes than normal loudspeakers. Non-lethal, non-kinetic crowd control. Excuse me. What else did I want to look at here? German World War II experimental weapons. I don't even want to get into that. Okay, it was down here. Planetary defense, asteroids, non-lethal weapons. The TCOM Technology Synopsum in 1997 concluded that on non-lethal weapons, determining the target effects on personnel is the greatest challenge to the testing community, primarily because the potential of injury and death severely limits human tests. Also, directed energy weapons that target central nervous system and cause neurophysical disorders may violate certain conventional weapons convention of 1980. Weapons that go beyond non-lethal intentions and cause superfluous injury or unnecessary suffering may also violate Protocol 1 to Geneva Conventions of 1977. Some common bioeffects of non-lethal electromagnetic weapons include difficulty breathing, disorientation, nausea, pain, vertigo, other systemic discomfort. Interference with breathing poses the most significant potentially lethal results. Light and repetitive visual signals can induce epileptic seizures. Vecticon and motion sickness can also occur. Cruise ships are known to use sonic weapons, such as LRAD, to drive off pirates. Interesting, huh? Russia has been reportedly using blinding laser weapons in its military intervention in Donbass. There's a lot of stuff. Then I was like Googling, what was I Googling? Oh, CO2, that was another thing because, wait a minute. All right, this here, let's see, this, I was Googling something and then this document came up. Directed energy weapons on the battlefield, a new vision for 2025. Lieutenant Colonel John P. Geist. Let's see here. It said a couple interesting things. The views expressed in this academic research paper are those of the author and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Air University or U.S. government or the Department of Defense. In accordance with Air Force Instruction 51-303, it is not copyrighted but is the property of the United States government. Oh, excuse me. Trying to get my screen back up here. My phone's ringing. I'm trying to pause this thing. Okay. Pause. Resume. Okay, I'm back. I had to pause for a minute. Let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay. Lieutenant Colonel John entered the Air Force. Was this what I wanted to read? Not specifically. I didn't really want to read that. In 1996, I had the privilege of participating in a major study effort requested by General Ronald Fogelman to look 30 years into the future under the leadership of Lieutenant General J. Kelly. I had a chance to interact with some of the brightest minds and most forward thinkers of this age. The list included, I don't really feel like reading all of these names. This paper is an outgrowth or perhaps the after effect of the study. My interest in directed energy began in earnest back in 1996, and I was researching and writing the monograph, The Alternate Futures of 2025. In 2001, I devoted part of my Air War College year toward an attempt to discern what directed energy technologies might mean for the future battlefield. I'm very appreciative of this assistance provided by Drs. Harrow and all these names. All right, abstract here. Several nations are engaging in development and production of directed energy weapons. Recent scientific advances now enable the production of lethal lasers and high-powered microwaves. The current growth and development in this emerging area strongly suggests that directed energy weapons of lethal power will reach the battlefield before 2010. Since proliferation of lower laser, weapons has already happened, it is likely that proliferation of high power or high energy weapons will occur as well. This paper expands on this development and posits potential impacts on a plausible future battlefield developed in part from the alternate futures of AF 225, where all comers deploy lethal energy-directed technologies. From these impacts, which span doctrine, organization, force structure, and system design, this paper recommends changes to better posture the United States for this potential future. Directed energy technologies are not new. Laser research began in earnest in the United States during the space race in the 1960s, and research in microwave physics can be tracked back to the atomic energy program in the late 1930s. What is new is the power and energy output levels being achieved by devices in our laboratories and in the field. Recent developments include megawatt class, millions of watts continuous wave lasers that have shot down aerospace vehicles, and a system of lasers at Lawrence Livermore Laboratories that combined produce a very short laser pulse with a peak power output of 5 quadrillion watts to the second power. As the output of directed energy sources continues to increase, so does potential for desirable battlefield effects. Within the next 20 to 30 years, laser and microwave weapons will place surface, airborne, and space forces at increased risk at greater distances. Lethal ranges for these new weapons will increase to hundreds of kilometers. As a result, laser blinding will rapidly become the least of our directed energy force protection worries. The purpose of this paper is straightforward and simple: to establish a vision for how directed energy weapons could revolutionize military affairs in the future. To achieve this, the paper will first describe the developments in directed energy technologies that have led us to the crossroads at which we now stand. Specifically, it will examine the development of 4 types of directed energy technologies: continuous wave lasers, pulse lasers, continuous wave high power microwaves, and pulse microwaves. This paper will also examine the trends in the proliferation of these technologies to postulate where the future may lead. From these trends, the paper will examine the battlefield of the future, where the likely impacts of directed energy weapons will be explored. From these impacts, it will be clear that changes to our doctrine and equipment will be required to maintain a viable expeditionary force. Many of these changes will be time-consuming difficult, expensive. Lastly, this paper will offer recommendations as to how the Department of Defense and the Air Force can better position our nation to be ready for the future. Air Force. The air. And then that's, I mean, this leads me to think about the geoengineering aspect, or what they call solar radiation management. It's just one thing that, and if you haven't ever listened to Dr. Judy, you should definitely listen to one of her lectures. It's like 2 hours long, but yeah, she calls it cold energy directed weaponry system. There's cold energy directed energy weapons and hot directed energy weapons. Directed energy as opposed to kinetic energy, and she gave examples of kinetic energy, which would be jet fuel, building fires, bombs, thermite, and mini nukes. Talking about a static field, create the static field. And then I was wondering, can the geoengineering or whatever they're doing in the skies create a static field? I don't know. Like I said, I don't really know about any of this stuff. I'm just exploring, you know. Directed energy technologies, continuous wave lasers. What else is interesting here? This is, I mean, should probably maybe read this all. But electromagnetic pulses. Just a few. An extremely powerful variant of pulsed electromagnetic energy that results from a nuclear weapon denotation is known as electromagnetic pulse, or EMP. Okay, that's it. The bandwidth of a nuclear EMP signal is extremely wide, ranging from tens of hertz up to tens of megahertz. Pulsed microwaves. Air Force laboratories have made substantial progress in developing microwave sources and antennas that are powered pretty much more mundane power systems and nuclear explosions. Currently available laboratory sources can produce 1 gigawatt of power for a few nanoseconds from a source weighing only 45 pounds. Ooh, somebody was talking about Hoover Dam. A slightly larger 400-pound source can produce 20 gigawatts of power for the same few nanoseconds. By comparison, the total power production output of the Hoover Dam is only 2 gigawatts. These microwave systems can affect electronics in much the same way that as described in EMP discussion above, albeit their effects are significantly more localized. Continuous wave microwaves. Most people are familiar with the most common effect of continuous wave microwaves. It heats their foods. This heating is due to the microwave energy exciting the water molecules within the food, causing its internal temperature to warm. From a physics standpoint, there is nothing to prevent microwaves from being used on living tissue. And research on the biological effects of these waves have been conducted for the past 70 years. The initial research into the effects of microwaves on living tissue began in 1931 with experiments examining the capacity of radio waves to induce unusual rhythms into the heart. By the mid-1940s, research expanded to examine possible relationships between microwaves and the usual incidence of cataracts in the eyes of personnel who worked in the microwave industry. By 1957, the scope of research expanded further as scientists probed the death of a young military member who died from an apparent overexposure to radar energy. Research on effects of large doses of microwaves on various human organs continued through the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. The exposure of Moscow-based U.S. Embassy personnel to low levels of microwave radiation in the 1970s fostered a new round of research. Scientists began examining the long-term effects of low-level microwave exposure. This research continued to expand, and as of today, there's at least 957 separate open-source research publications on the medical and biological effects of microwave radiation. Throughout this research, scientists have demonstrated a myriad of microwave effects, among which are biological changes on the cellular level, changes in brain chemistry and function, changes in cardiovascular function, creation of lesions within the eye, temporary incapacitation, and even death. Early research in microwave also showed that low dosages over long periods could cause changes in the formation of cells in lung tissue and decreased lung function, changes in calcium ions affecting brain and cell function, changes in blood chemistry, changes in immune system function, some favorable and others adverse, and increases in histamine production. Wow, this is interesting. In addition, microwaves have been able to produce performance-degrading effects. For example, microwaves have been able to turn alpha waves into beta waves in the brains of some animals. And a recent Pentagon briefing indicated the effects such as using electromagnetic waves to put humans to sleep or heat them up have been explored. Wow. You know, this is interesting because, well, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but the day that I saw them doing so much spraying in the sky, it was interesting because actually it didn't rain the next day, but what did happen was that the sun felt unnaturally hot. It was like I couldn't even sit in it in the morning because it just felt like it felt unnaturally hot. That's all the way that I can explain it. The research seems to have been confirmed by the Marine Corps Electromagnetic Weapons Project in the early 1980s, which discovered that electromagnetic radiation could be used to cause mammals to release 80% of the natural opioids in their brains, placing animals in a stupor. Substantial research has been conducted into the pain-inducing effects of heating the outermost epidermal layers. And the U.S. Marine Corps has conducted area denial demonstrations with this technology. That's interesting because in Dr. Judy's lecture, she shows a picture of a man, of the people. That's it. That's it. That's it. She shows a picture of the people trying to come out of the building through the window. Well, they were hanging on. But she shows one guy who took off his pants for some odd reason, but she was explaining that these directed energies could make your skin feel hot or something like that. So anyways, yeah, heating the most epidermal layers, pain inducing. You know, and those people who died there, you know, they know kind of what, you know, what happened. But lethal effects are also possible. The Washington Post reported in 1987 that the Soviet Union had used radio wave weapons to kill goats at a range of 1 kilometer. Wow. Wow, wow. Research conducted at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory was conducted on an electromagnetic gun, what would induce epileptic-like seizures. Another was a thermal gun, what would have the operational effect of heating the body to 105 to 107 degrees Fahrenheit. Such effects would bring on discomfort, fevers, or even death. This is what she was, I feel like this is what Dr. Judy was talking about. The Russians may have even been able to use electromagnetic energy to create a voice of God effect. If true, microwave energy may have uses in the information. That's it. There's no more. There's no more. The Russians may, if true, microwave energy may have uses in the information operations realm as well. Wow. Like, why would you want to play with that? Why would you want to play with that? That's freaky. The Russians may have been able to use electromagnetic energy to create a voice of God effect. If true, microwave energy may have uses in the information operations. If true, sorry, microwave energy may have uses in the information operations. What is even more interesting are the power levels needed to create these potentially debilitating effects. Research by French physicist Jacques Thury suggests that many of the uses mentioned above can be conducted with only a few milliwatts of energy per square centimeter on target. Even the most extreme uses involved energy of only around 550 milliwatts per square centimeter. These energy levels are important when compared with the power generation capabilities mentioned above. As a result, continuous wave radio weapons, microwaves, may have significant military uses as we move into the 21st century. That's it, there's no more. Here, can I do it in a bit? I'm doing a video. Future developments in directed energy weapons. Please don't do that. Please stop. No, no, no. I'm making a video. Don't make that sound. Let's see. Continuous wave lasers.
I can't touch it.
Laser power output watch over time. Okay. 2025. Look, what is this? A projected? They want it to reach 10 million. watts. Oh, laser output. Here you go. Here you go. 2020 data. Pulse lasers, like their continuous wave cousins, pulse lasers have also increased exponentially in power over the past 30 years. Since no weaponization has yet occurred with this type of laser, it is difficult to reasonably extrapolate trends for the future. This paper posits that derivatives from the current level of technology in the laboratory will make it to the field in the next 20 years. Tarot class devices may be flying on fighter-like aircraft in the 2020-2030 timeframe. So it's interesting that this is the way 2020 is going, because it's almost like some type of an initiation, you know, into a new era of some sort. Anyhow, due to weight and size constraints, it seems like that multi-petawatt pulse devices will be regulated to ground stations. Still, as the figure below indicates, extremely powerful devices are likely in this time frame, providing significant military utility. For example, the Lawrence Livermore P petawatt device was capable of generating temperatures at the impact point of several million degrees. Plasma creation, ablation through significant metal. You did it? Okay. Plasma creation, ablation through significant metal thickness, and some all-weather capability become possible with laser of this power. Continuous high-power microwaves. Microwave effects differ from lasers because the effect of the target is only partially dependent on the power output of the microwave device. With microwaves, the specific frequency, bandwidth, and transmission device all have direct bearing on the effects sustained at the target. Nonetheless, power output capability for future microwave weapons will increase in much the same way as laser devices already explored. With this power production and improved portability, microwaves will enable a very different set of effects-based operations on future battlefields. As we discussed earlier, continuous wave microwaves can have a variety of potential effects ranging from intense sensation of heat on the person's skin to causing incapacitation to even death. The Air Force Research Laboratory has weaponized such a system for non-lethal effects, and it is being tested in conjunction with the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate. This paper posits that the development of microwave weapons will also continue in the next 20-25 years. If the United States fails to lead this change, it may be forced to follow the lead of other developed nations. In the future, continuous wave microwave devices will likely find uses for area denial, force protection, or for non-lethal incapacitation of forces, minimizing loss of life. Casey, come here, girl. It is likely this technology will also be developed as a lethal weapon in the form of a death beam type device. The wide beam width of microwave transmission systems, which for some systems are measured in tens of degrees, will enable these effects to become widespread, potentially covering large sections of the battlefield. What battlefield? Us? I mean, like, where is this supposed battlefield? Thus, microwaves can be viewed as an area weapon. As a result, a different thought process must be used in choosing target sets and setting objectives. Used defensively, the nature of microwaves may reduce the importance of the element of surprise and/or the value of some stealth technologies. Pulsed microwaves. In addition to being broadcast as continuous beam, microwaves can be emitted in short pulses or bursts of short pulses. These pulsed microwave devices in future warfare will likely come in two basic forms: nuclear-driven EMP weapons and conventionally driven pulse devices. Nuclear device-driven EMP waves will likely change relatively little over the next 20 years. Limitations such as the nuclear test ban treaties will certainly hinder revolutionary advances in this area. Still, as was shown in part 2, peak electric fields, don't do that, of 12 to 25 kilovolts per meter will be possible within line of sight of any nuclear detonation. This includes space. You can have it. This is partly what Rob Skiba was talking about. He said that they were going to have us want to think that we had enemies in space or something like that. Here you go. Oh no, Casey, she didn't get it. She didn't get it. She almost got it. She kind of got my hand a little. Let's see here. Let's see here. Conventionally driven high-power microwave sources will also have a significant effect on future battlefields. These weapons will have long reach, deep magazines, and will be of scalable size, while larger devices will be mounted on ground or air vehicles. Some smaller devices will be handheld. The large vehicle-mounted devices may be capable of interdicting over 100 targets per mission. Further, these weapons will likely have considerable reach. It is not unreasonable that a single high-power microwave weapon could destroy the entire air defense system and have a similar impact on the entire command and control network, possibly eliminating the ability to manage military assets. While it is possible to defend against such attack, it is currently very difficult and quite expensive to harden systems and facilities against microwave attack. Another area in which additional advancements may occur in pulsed microwave technologies is in the use of wideband pulses. Many microwave and radio transmitters today broadcast on a single carrier frequency or in only a limited set of frequencies. This has led to programs hardening systems against pulses of specific frequency. The enhancement of wideband microwave pulse technology will enable the destruction of or disabling of those systems hardened against only parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. Thus, only those devices hardened against the entire electromagnetic spectrum will likely survive wideband microwave pulses. Thus, only those devices hardened against the electromagnetic spectrum will likely survive wideband microwave pulses. This has led to programs hardening systems. The real question is what all these technological developments mean for future warfare. To try to answer this question as completely as possible, we will look at future scenario in 2020 to 30 timeframe. The Persian Gulf War of 2025. A moment's insight is sometimes worth a life's experience. The following scenario is for illustrative purposes only. It is designed to raise some of the doctrinal, strategic planning, and operational issues that directed energy weapons will pose. To posit the U.S. as the only owner of these weapons produces a rather uninteresting scenario of rapid U.S. victory. The key challenges to our future warfighting capability will occur when our opponents also possess modern weapons and when the U.S. is responding in an expeditionary mode. This future picture is murkier and the outcome is much less certain. The following scenario uses real places and in some cases real people. However, it is not a prediction of what will happen, only a plausible future of what might happen. Is this like when like years ago Fauci was like, or one of these dudes were predicting, you know, a pandemic? Oh no. It has its roots in two alternate futures from the Chief of Staff directed study Air Force 2025, specifically the worlds of 2015 Crossroads and King Khan. The rise of China. I wonder when the heck this was written. Anyways. What was called the American century has given way to the Asian millennium. The economies of Southeast Asia became progressively more intertwined in the early years of the 21st century. By the year 2000, over 70% of the wealth of Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore was in the hands of ethnic Chinese. The trade between the Chinese in the area and the mainland helped the mainland economy grow rapidly. In late 2000, many estimated the Chinese gross domestic product to be in the neighborhood of 5.6 trillion, with annual trade with the US at over 58 billion. After the economic slowdown in 2002 to 4, China's economy continued to grow at around 8% per year and passed the US economy in total of size by 2011. By 2012, Chinese GDP passed 12 trillion on its way to the 29 trillion mark in 2025. The same year, the United States economy crossed the 18 trillion threshold. The robust economic expansion paved the way for China to modernize its military. China increased military spending over 200% between 1988 and 1995, and although the pace of growth has slowed somewhat, China's defense spending continues to increase. China began a restructuring of its military in the late 1990s and continued this during the decade that followed. China began to change a mammoth military equipped with aging and dilapidated equipment into a smaller but more capable force. China purchased Remini class destroyers in the late 1990s and began construction of its first aircraft carrier in 2006. The construction of the carrier proved more difficult than expected, and the carrier and its attendant aviation wing were not completed until 2012. Seeking to bolster its force production capability, China embarked on a program to build a new group every 4 years until it had 7 carrier groups in its fleet. By 2025, 4 carrier battle groups were in operation. China was also concerned about its ability to project ground forces. A program to build new amphibious vessels was begun in 2005. Today, in 2025, China has sufficient sea lift to land 3 divisions ashore at a point of its choosing. Well aware of the value of asymmetric weapons, China began investing in directed energy weapons in the late 20th century. By 2025, China had equipped her naval vessels with 50 TW pulse laser cannons, pulse microwave beams capable of inducing kilovolt electric fields in unprotected circuitry at distances of several tens of miles, and continuous wave microwave devices for point defense, area denial, and adversary troop incapacitation. Airborne laser systems, while less powerful, were capable of destroying a tank at 10 miles and engaging an adversary aircraft at more than 100 miles in clear weather. Microwave defense shields were in place around all military assets, capable of disintegrating the circuits of any guided weapon that approached within 10 kilometers. Aware of the impact of directed energy technologies, with asymmetric use of these technologies a central theme of their defense plans, China maintains a redundant command and control system with both digital and analog communications. Hardening against use of these devices has been incorporated into all vessels and vehicles built since 2012. The rise of Iran. Whew, this is a lot to read, but this is his, story or whatever. The theocratic government of Saudi Arabia. So he's presenting a situation, a future situation that could arise. Let's see what it says under the United States. The United States began the new century as the world's one and only superpower. The tax cut package implemented in 2002, combined with increased military and homeland security spending, resulted in an end of the budget surpluses that characterized the 1990s. Pro-business lobbying and a generally conservative Congress resulted in no movement within the U.S. in development of national energy policy or the development of more energy-efficient infrastructure. The U.S. ended the year 2000 importing 49% of its domestic oil needs. It enters 2025 importing more than 60% of the oil needed to run the economy and fuel its cars, trucks, motorcycles, and aircraft. The economy continued to grow throughout the period. The GDP rose from under 9 trillion in 2000 to a 2025 level of nearly 19 trillion. Despite the robust economy, a series of tax cuts kept federal revenues relatively steady. Thus, while there was a recovery from the post-Cold War military drawdown, this recovery has been slow. The U.S. enters 2025 with 10 full aerospace expeditionary forces, which contain the F-22, JSF, and more than 20 airborne laser attack platforms each. The Army has succeeded in implementing much of the Joint Vision 2020. The Joint Vision 2020, wow, capabilities, but has only started the conversion to what was known in 2000 as the Army after next. The Navy is back to 13 carrier battle groups, with each major combatant ship and submarine having high energy laser and high power microwave weapons. Powered by nuclear plants, the weapons on the aircraft carriers and submarines are on par with larger fixed ground stations. Stealthy cruise missiles and stealthy aircraft predominate the air component of each of the services. Let's read, okay, here we go. The trigger events. Worldwide oil production finally plateaued in 2025, peaking at 118 million barrels per day. Global demand continued to increase, however, and now stood at nearly 126 million barrels per day. The result was on February 1st, 2025, oil hit a price of $90 per barrel and threatened to reach $130 per barrel by mid-year. The economies of the world's great powers were greatly strained, with China and the United States facing the same basic problem. The desire continued unimpeded economic growth, China for stability, the United States for prosperity. The Chinese leadership feared a breakup and fragmentation of the country if cheap oil sources for the economy could not be secured. The leadership decided to leverage its long-standing relationship with Iran to further Chinese economic needs while providing for the attainment of Iran's long-term goal of becoming the Middle East's greatest regional power. Similarly, the United States sought to leverage its alliances to maintain U.S. access to vital world oil supplies. In early February, the Chinese premier conducted a summit with Iranian president and the leading Iranian clergy to enlist their support for continued Chinese economic growth. This summit included covert discussions of Chinese to support an Iranian attempt to increase their control over all oil flow in the Middle East. In return, Iran promised China sufficient oil to maintain their economic growth. As the summit concluded, 3 Chinese aircraft carrier battle groups, 19 major amphibious troop carriers with over 20,000 combat troops, and over 50 submarines began to steam toward the Straits of Hormuz. On February 19th, Iran announced that it would use all of its resources to supply oil solely to China. World spot market oil prices rose overnight by $50 per barrel. Qatar and the United Arab Emirates indicated they would sell only to the West on February 21st. Iran responded by seizing all islands in the Straits of Hormuz and declaring that they would exercise the right to determine which vessels may pass through the narrow straits, which they defined as the sovereign waters of Iran. This is how I heard the virus theory came about too, before they even used the microscopes and stuff like that, was to control the control trade through these straits and stuff. All right, so it says immediately deployed. Hold on, let me go back to your page. Iran immediately deployed its entire submarine fleet, estimated at 100 vessels, and powered its directed energy network along its coastline. U.S. deployment. The president ordered a freedom of navigation exercise through Hormuz Straits. The American aircraft carrier Independence sailed through the straits the next day. Carrier was attacked by Iranian laser stations, which destroyed the carrier's laser emitter. The carrier also sustained laser-induced gashes along the entire port side of the vessel. The gash was 13 inches wide and stretched from stem to stern, only 14 inches above the waterline. Minutes later, the Independence was attached by at least 6 submarines. I think he meant attacked. I don't know. While the subs did not sink the vessel, their torpedoes caused the carrier to take on water. As the carrier sank, further water poured through the gash along the entire length of the vessel. I don't feel like reading all this. Employment war. Long story he's written here. The need for advanced stealth almost everywhere. Challenges for expeditionary force. The advent of high-power microwave weapons may create serious problems for unhardened facilities. Unhardened facilities. So that's a key there. The expeditionary mindset of DoD will need to include methods of ensuring communications and computer systems are not vulnerable to electromagnetic attack, especially early in the deployment phase. These are 2 possible methods. There is substantial evidence that a combination of fiber optics and laser communications may provide at least a partial solution to this problem. Combining these technologies with optical switches currently being researched by the naval laboratories would clearly enable a robust inter-theater communication system. This will not solve the problem of hardening the automation technology, nor does it fully secure the communications between the forward headquarters and theater and continental U.S. base activities. Alternatively, a major construction program of electromagnetically hardened facilities at all potential expeditionary forward operating locations may also be a potential solution. To maximize readiness, these facilities should be constructed to house all operational units, command and control facilities, vehicles, and aircraft. These facilities will require periodic maintenance and the permanent basis of all small cadre of support personnel. Unless the automation technology on which DoD depends is hardened against all bands of RF energy signals, hardened facilities may be the only way to guarantee operability of the technology on which our operations currently depend. The disruptive nature of directed energy weapons. Also places a premium on the ability to defend the base during the earliest stages of deployment. Since the ability to defend against directed energy weapons is directly dependent on the range of the defensive weapon, consideration should be given to building robust defenses at the installation overseas, which we would deploy. If directed energy defenses are used, the range of the systems will be dependent on the power output of the respective systems. Hardening of commercial systems, force protection. DoD's present mindset on laser eye protection is myopic. The real laser protection issues for the future have to do with being able to keep our people from being burned or vaporized by laser beams powerful enough to do so. Wow, interesting. Burned or vaporized. Current materials like Nomex can provide a couple of seconds of protection, but are inadequate to protect against even modest laser exposure. Additionally, personal protection against microwave weaponry will also be needed. This may be possible by building a protection into outer garments that will keep microwave energy from penetrating further, much like a Faraday cage prevents microwaves from leaking from a household appliance. Lastly, protective measures for combatant systems need to be explored. The question of whether it is even possible to protect a satellite, aircraft, tank, or naval vessel against high energy lasers must be researched. While reflective coatings may work against continuous wave lasers, such materials may be less effective at pulse lasers that tend to ablate material off of a surface. Protection against a combination of the two types of lasers, pulse laser ablates and the surfaces, causing it to be non-reflective, causing wave lasers, then makes the kill, may also need to be investigated. Directed energy weapons, are they weapons of mass destruction? Historically, weapons of mass destruction are juxtaposed from conventional munitions by virtue of their ability to compress the time and effort needed to kill, injure, or incapacitate. Further, these weapons have the ability to inflict death and injury over wide areas, with the prospect for considerable collateral damage. Other sources refer to weapons of mass destruction as weapons that are capable of high order of destruction and are being used in such a manner to destroy large numbers of people. In general, it seems that weapons that cause large numbers of casualties, that have the capacity for large levels of collateral damage or indiscriminate killing are called weapons of mass destruction. Nuclear, chemical, biological, laser, microwave. Conclusion. Technologies for directed energy weapons are here today. They will be considerably more widespread and more available, more powerful, more lethal on the battlefields of tomorrow. As such, the Air Force and DoD must grapple with strategic implications of these weapons, and that struggle must begin today. It currently takes approximately 20 years to bring new major weapon systems from conception to production. Responsible stewardship of taxpayer-provided resources demands that we ensure our future systems are adaptable to a directed energy environment. This author claims no prescience predictions of the future. This publication is merely an attempt to begin a crucial debate within our Air Force and within DoD on how best to prepare for the world that lies ahead. What seems clear is that we have only 5 to 10 years before earnest preparations to meet these challenges will need to be underway. Even with the most concerted efforts, it will take us that long to select a path on which to proceed. This debate is important because directed energy weapons promise to transform the battlefield at least as much as the rifled barrel and at least as much as the aircraft, even more. As such, we have a choice to be proactive and lead the transformation or be left behind as the world changes around us. At stake is the future of the United States and the world in which we have. Yeah, but like, I mean, geesh. You're just gonna kill each other with directed energy weapons or what? He didn't even talk about, I don't know. Anyways. Whew. Yeah, there was a lot I did not read in there, but I just wanted to skim it. I'm not gonna read this other thing probably right now, but I was searching geoengineering and static field, I don't know. And then I kind of came up this thing, and this is for people who like their head is in the sand about how they are engineering in the skies. And not that this document is telling us the truth. I believe that these documents are a cover up. Like, yes, they're doing things in the skies, but it's not for the reasons that they lay out here, that the Royal Society or whatever lays out. To me, that's obviously just a first value, but there's really a deeper reason why they want to do this. But this is just for people like who are like, oh, that, you know, like really ignorant people who don't even look up at the sky to see, oh yeah, like look at that, you know, they're so ignorant, they can't even tell the difference between normal looking day and weird stuff in the sky. So yeah, this is from 2009, Geoengineering the Climate, the Royal Society. One thing I thought was interesting that I never heard of was, where is it? Where did it go? Carbon dioxide removal techniques. I thought that's interesting. Because I thought, like, why would they want to remove carbon dioxide? Isn't that what the trees supposedly take in or whatever? Oh, see, here it is. I thought, why do they want to remove carbon dioxide? Like, there has to be a reason. It's not like for our health or something. There has to be something they want to use it for. Carbon dioxide removal methods reviewed in this study include land use management to protect or enhance land carbon sinks, the use of biomass for carbon sequestration, as well as a carbon neutral energy source, enhancement of natural weathering processes to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. Like, but like, if you remove CO2 from the atmosphere, like, isn't that what plants need? I don't. Direct engineered capture of CO2 from ambient air, the enhancement of oceanic uptake of CO2. Then they talk about solar radiation management, techniques to directly modify the Earth's radiation balance that would take only a few years of effect. It's like these people have plans for the world, and I feel like the normal day-to-day Joe, you know, like people don't think that the world governments have plans for this world that we live in. They do, you know what I mean? And they're the ones who, you know, make these big decisions, like what they're, you know, what are they gonna do with the sun, you know? Geoengineering methods. Carbon dioxide removal, I guess, is a geoengineering method. Solar radiation management techniques reflect a small percentage of the sun's light and heat back into space. But if there is no outer space and NASA is a fraud, are they reflecting the sun's light back into outer space? You know what I mean? Like, furthermore, you know, if there is a dome over us and a firmament and it's hard and they're directing the sun's energy up, I mean, I don't know. This is wild. And this is why people don't believe this stuff goes on. This is why people don't have any clue about like energy weapons and stuff, because we don't see this stuff. Like, we're just normal people living our lives, right? Like doing simple things, and we don't consider all this extravagant stuff that these people are doing and are into, and we can't see it, so therefore we don't believe it's happening or something. We just, you know. Both carbon dioxide removal and solar radiation management methods have the ultimate aim of reducing global temperatures. The reason, and if temperatures are rising, and the reason they say it's rising is probably a lie too. But there are major differences in their modes of action, timescales, yada yada. Solar radiation management techniques attempt to offset effects of increased greenhouse gas concentration by causing the Earth to absorb less solar radiation. Obviously, there is an unnatural problem here, because God would not create the land and the sun and then for it to destroy itself. Like, obviously, there is a human created problem, you know, that's causing a problem. You know, it's not just because of the sun and the earth, you know, that's, let's see here. Anyways, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. So yeah, Dr. Judy Wood, Where Did the Towers Go? I think that's the name of her book. So I'm going to sign off here. And if you listen to this whole thing, I mean, take care and thanks. So I'm going to stop the share.